want to welcome now, though, Luo goes by the code name Giovanni. He's joining us from outside of China. He's been able to escape. So Giovanni, why don't you tell us about your background and what you particularly bring to this conversation today?
First of all, thank you very much, Mr. Bannon. It's an honor to be on your show today. My background basically is a professional in the professional field, and is in various business. So I know pretty much about the CCP's info war, and what I wanted to talk about it today is the CCP are all bunch of control freaks, and that's their DNA. But often the truth makes them freak out as well about what might be coming next. We all witnessed a few days ago, the CCP Central Television News channel was angrily barking at you, Mr. Bannon, and Mr. Pompeo, with all sorts of the smears and the baloney. So simply because they are really petrified of the truth. The truth is the CCP virus was originated from the lab in Wuhan.
What they're doing now is what we call information warfare, and it's laid out pretty specifically in this great manual that was put out back in the late 90s, unrestricted warfare. So can you walk us through the way that they suppress the Chinese people, but also their concept of information warfare? Because the people in the United States are just now starting to understand what this is about. You saw it this week, as you mentioned, these attacks nonstop on Mike Pompeo, attacks on me in the show, people here that come on. They're very upset about these specials that we've had with Chinese voices on here. They're very upset that we focus on the Chinese Communist Party and say that the Chinese people are our allies and Lao Beijing old 100 names. So can you walk through how do they go about information warfare? I mean, you've seen this from the inside. So walk us through what it is.
Basically, the Chinese Communist Party, actually, they believe at each turning in history, they believe that the chance of their survival always hinge on three magic things. The first one is called arms struggle. The second one is propaganda. The third one is united front.
First one's armed struggle. What does armed struggle mean?
The armed struggle means people have been restricted to having firearms. As CCP firmly believes, the ruling power comes out of the gun barrels. So the Chinese people have been under the CCP's barrel to tremble and obey for over 70 years.
Hold on, I want to slow down here because this is obviously, the United States is a big believer. One of our key amendments in our Constitution is the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms. So are what you're saying, and Mao's famous saying was that power comes from the barrel of a gun. Political power comes from the barrel of a gun. Are you saying that this is one of the principal ways that the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, has oppressed the Chinese people, is the fact that they don't let them have firearms and that they control all the weapons?
Yes, certainly. Since they took power back in 1949, they believe once people have the right to hold a firearm, probably their ruling power, the government will be toppled by the people one day.
Is there any sense that if you actually had the right to bear arms for Chinese citizens, if that became a right, would, in your mind, many Chinese citizens want to get arms? Would they want to actually be armed?
If we say the government is actually, if it is, I think people should be armed if they want to defend themselves.
So you're saying that you don't think at the local level the Chinese Communist Party could have the power and an oppressive power they had if you had an armed citizenry? Is that basically what you're saying?
Yeah. Yes.
So how you said the two other ways is the other one is one is arms, which I think for a lot of our audience may come as a revelation. For others of our audience, the deplorables, they say absolutely. This is what we've been arguing from day one, that free men and free women have to have the ability to arm themselves. And so for a lot of our audience, including the Greg Manses and Jack Maxey's, I see a lot of nodding your heads over here, who giving hoorahs. The propaganda in United Front. Walk us through what do you mean by propaganda, and how do they use that to suppress? We're used to propaganda being on the outside, propaganda throughout the world to say the United States are foreign devils, and everything we're doing is trying to destroy the Chinese people. We understand that. What's the internal propaganda they use to kind of control the people?
Obviously, with this internet fireworks, people can only hear one voice from the mighty CCP propaganda machine. The whole population inside China has been put on a heavy electronic surveillance, and virtually every single text and message has been censored automatically. So you can expect constantly people have knocking on the doors from the local police for sending any so-called sensitive information. That's how they control the media and the information inside of China.
Let me ask you, you're saying that every text message, everything, they monitor all of that?
Yeah, every single pack of information, data, will be automatically censored and monitored.
And so how do people feel comfortable even talking?
People, when they talk, they have to be very cautious, and they have to choose the word correctly. They try to avoid any hassle from the police.
And talk to us last about the United Front. What do you mean by United Front? That's a new term, a new concept that we're putting out here for the American audience and for our worldwide audience. What do you mean by United Front?
The United Front, basically, there's a kind of a network, and extended to all different layers of the society, and inside of China, the CCP will extend their surveillance through the United Front network on some of the so-called dark spots, such as religious groups, minority ethnic groups, and business associations, and so on. That's inside China.
And so how do they use that? How do they use those operations, the United Front? Because we've heard the United Front out here. How do they use that internally to do suppression of the Chinese people?
Basically, the United Front network, they covers all the layers in the societies. So they can, mostly those minority groups, or the party, the head of the party, actually, they are all Communist Party members. So through the network, so they can put all the surveillance on those people, on those groups.
So walk through the combination of armed struggle. They have all the guns and the citizens don't. The combination of this propaganda machine, the combination of this United Front of all these institutions. what is daily life like for a citizen who's not part of the Communist Party in China? Just walk us through what is daily life like in what you're describing as a surveillance state.
Actually, it is worth noting that the Communist Party, since they took power, they have actually designed a personal file system. So virtually from day one, when kids are being enrolled into the local primary schools, and the file will be automatically created and it will follow them for the rest of their lives. And
hold on, hang on for a second. I want to make sure our audience understands this. You're saying from the time a child is 5 or 6 or 7 years old, he starts school, that the party, the surveillance state, has already started a file on you at the age of 5 or 6?
Correct.
And what is that file supposed to add over time? Is this your own personal dossier?
It's all information about yourself and about your family, about your social network, like your extent, the families, your uncle, your auntie, all the social network connections, and all the information about yourself. So this will go all the way up to when you reach the retirement.
Okay, Lua, and we call you Giovanni when we have met you and talked to you. Understand that you've escaped from mainland China. What I want to do is hold you over through the break. We're gonna take a short commercial break here. I want to come back. We're also going to get Li Zhang back on when we can. When we finish up the static. You've kind of at least shocked me this morning talking about, which Richard Haas I think doesn't get. He never mentions the totalitarian police state, right? He treats it like just a normal, we don't have a problem with them, not a problem. Richard Haas, I like Richard Haas to hear some of the voices here. Why the American elites? Why have they abandoned the Chinese people? Why are we supporting? And why are we in business with a totalitarian dictatorship? Okay, I want to return to our guest, Giovanni. His Chinese name's Luo, and these people show tremendous courage by coming on this show and giving us their unexpurgated opinions about the Chinese Communist Party. I want to go back to Huawei and to the technology, unrestricted warfare. They've come at us, in information war and economic war, kind of combined through these telecom companies. Walk us through in a broad sense. What are we looking at here in the West? Because people are, we have people signing up for the boards of directors. We have Americans working with these companies. One of the law firms we have a lot of respect for has just announced that they're going to be, Jones Day is going to be a lobbyist for Huawei. Giovanni, can you walk us through what we're actually looking at when we look at Huawei and these other technology and telecom companies?
Huawei and ZTE, actually, they are the companies that the leading roles in this propaganda and media control game. They're not only for data collecting, but trying to infiltrate the network infrastructure globally, but also acting on various missions that designated by the CCP. Literally, they have been given an open checkbook books to grease palms of the Western society at different levels. So that means that they have a mission. We really cannot get our heads around it sometimes. So we try to figure out why oftentimes some of the Western main media are always buying the CCP stories and the fake news. But we do know that VOA has been in the same tune with the CCP for a long time. And ironically, the entity itself has been funded by American taxpayers.
So I just want to make sure that I know someone who is on the mainland and just recently got out that you're saying Voice America. You think Voice America is co-opted by the propaganda machine or the propaganda party line of the CCP? Is that what you're saying as a Chinese citizen?
Yes, absolutely. Because they are supposed to have the American voice out to the Chinese. It should be the other way. So, but we have this kind of saga, in play, and oftentimes they have become a mouthpiece of the CCP to a certain.
I want to get just one other thing straight. You're saying that ZTE and Huawei and all these companies are actually trying to infiltrate the global telecom systems to get into the systems? Is that what you're putting forward?
Yeah, that's because those companies are always being deployed or militarized by the CCP as their economic frontiers for fulfilling the party's political agenda and the goals. That's why they are out there, operating day in, day out.
We only got about a minute and a half left. What about the courage you people showed come on this show? What happens if the Chinese Communist Party finds out that you're actually getting information from the West into mainland China to your friends and associates? What would happen to you?
Basically, they might distance away from me, or they vice versa. They might be in trouble. That's the reality we are facing every day.
What do you define as trouble?
Yes.
No, what's your definition? You said you'd be in trouble. What is your definition of trouble?
Probably I don't. I might have received calls from my families, ask me to stop, come on the show or go on the public media and post something which is the CCP doesn't like.
Giovanni, thank you very much. I know it takes a lot of courage to come on this, and you guys are at a lot of risk for doing this. Leo, so thank you very much for joining us here on Descent into Hell Part 4. Really appreciate the courage for you to come forward. This will be subtitled later in the day in a Mandarin and get back to your countrymen. So I really appreciate you coming on the show today.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bannon. It's an honor to be on your show today. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.